Blog Talk Radio.
Of NBA Unplugged with your host, Jacob Noble from the ProBasketballTalk.com. We have a little bit of a lineup change as Brian has moved on to bigger and better things, if you could believe it or not. And so we're going to have a new host join me permanently from now on, and if you could guess who it is, we're going to give you anything you want, if we could give it to you. But we'll just move forward with it. And a credentialed writer, he's been with us since the birth of the show, Bucklin. He will be joining us every Thursday or Tuesday whenever we have our show. So welcome on, JJ. Introduce yourself to the people who don't know you.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here as a member of NBA Unplugged. I am honored to be taking the place of the legendary hoops critic Brian Geltzeller. And, Jacob came to me after he said that Brian was leaving the show and said, we need a new guy to step in and take his place, and I'm honored to take that place. I feel like I'm already prepared to, since you already maybe know me from the Bozos of Basketball, which you listen to every Wednesday night on the Blog Talk Radio for theprobasketballtalk.com. I am the host of that show. I will become the host of this show, and don't you worry, the Bozos are going nowhere. I'm just going to be in your ear lobes twice a week rather than just once, folks, if you don't enjoy my beautiful voice.
So today we have a fantastic show. We had a couple of weeks off with some issues going on. The lineup changed, but, we're getting basketball fever. The Olympics are out of our face about time.
About 8 weeks.
About 8 weeks. We got the season coming up. It's 2 months. They'll be getting into training camp. So we're going to break down all these winners and losers going around the country of, teams just making bozo signings or people making some fantastic moves. But we'll bounce around and we'll pick a team and kind of just talk about what they fall into 3 categories. You got winners, losers, and the confused-ass teams. Teams that just don't know what the hell they're doing, or at least to us, we don't have a clue what they're doing. So, JJ, pick a team off your list first, and we'll break them down.
Well, before we continue, and if he refers to me as JJ, that's because it's another name that I go by. You'll just have to get used to that. I would like to add that this is a special podcast because we are actually doing this face-to-face right now. Usually, us on theprobasketballtalk.com like to go over the phone with each other because we're in different areas. Jacob and I happen to be, we work close to each other. We're able to talk face-to-face, so there's going to be a very special podcast, very intimate between the two of us.
Intimate.
No homo, I do promise you.
Well, we'll eventually get cameras to prove that there's no homo going on.
Right. Once the cameras are here, you'll know that there's no, but that's for another podcast. This one's a very straightforward NBA Unplugged podcast. I wouldn't want to get into that. Maybe Ben and I will talk about that later next Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever we get on. But if we want to talk winners, I think the one I want to start with is the Los Angeles Lakers, just to get the obvious one out of the way.
That makes a lot of sense. We don't have to state the obvious. They picked up Steve Nash for 3 years, $27 million. They were able to finagle Dwight Howard out of Orlando
without losing Pau Gasol.
Which is huge. They gave up Andrew Bynum, which, let's face it, he's too busy doing zen on the bench. He's too busy getting tossed out of important playoff games. And let's get a guy like Dwight Howard to get him on a winning team so he can get rid of his excuses of not having the team.
And you don't lose Kobe Bryant. You don't lose Pau Gasol, as we said. You don't lose Ron Artest or Meta World Peace, whoever you want to call him. The team is stacked. I'm absolutely frightened of them.
Not to mention, they also picked up Antoine Jameson real cheap. So,
sure.
They improved their roster better than any team out there this offseason. And, they're going in like they do every year, thinking they're going to win a title.
Yeah, and this year more than any, I think. Their weakness has been point guard for as many years as I can remember. And Kobe can handle the ball well enough that he doesn't necessarily need one with him. Now that he has one, I'll be interested to see with Kobe Bryant if he adjusts his game to work with Steve Nash or expects Nash to complement him in some ways.
That's going to be the trick there. They've gone away from the triangle offense since Mike Brown took over. They're looking to install the Princeton offense, which is what we're hearing a lot of. it's really give Nash the ball and let him run the offense. I don't care what you call it. You get him the ball, and he'll make the plays. So, as JJ pointed out or James pointed out, I'm looking forward to seeing, is he going to be more efficient with the basketball? Is he going to take smarter shots, or is he not going to force as much shots? Because, let's face it, everyone talks about the shot count with Kobe. When he shoots over 20, the Lakers are, sub-500 team. When he shoots under 20, they're title contenders every time they step on the court. So it will be interesting to see how the ball gets shared between them. And plus, you got a guy like Dwight Howard who complains about touches every single year in game. And if he's not getting the ball and not getting the stats, will he be happy with 8 points and 15 rebounds and 5 blocks a game, or does he want 20-10?
And I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to look at that on national television. With that team, I'm pretty sure that the Lakers will be on TV every single week, at least 3 times per week on ESPN, ABC, TNT, what have you, NBA TV even. But, yeah, I think the big story to look at them is exactly what you said, what they'll be doing with that offense. If you just let Steve Nash run the show and use those guys as weapons, he's like Tom Brady out there or Aaron Rodgers with all his wide receivers and running backs to throw to. He's got big guys. He's got the scorers like Kobe Bryant on the wings, Anton Jameson who can score inside and from the three-point range. If Steve Nash is a fraction of what he was with the Suns during his MVP years, I could see him putting up those type of numbers in assists anyway, once again with the Lakers, with the weapons that they have.
Absolutely. The thing about Steve, though, is you got to remember he's going to have to shoot the basketball because they don't really have great outside shooting. They have okay. Jameson's okay, not efficient. Kobe's okay, not efficient.
Ron can do it.
Ron can do it.
Probably shouldn't.
Probably should, exactly. You probably don't want him having it. But you've got the inside game with Powell and Dwight, so you need to counter that. But Steve Nash is a fantastic three-point shooter. He's got great percentages for his careers, and, that's going to be an interesting topic. But let's move on because we're already bored with the Lakers. And let's go pick a confused team. And the confused team that I have out there is the Clippers. We'll stay in L.A. for a minute. The Clippers, to me, are just very confused. I felt like they could have gone after Rayon a little harder. I think he would have been better for that team instead of a guy like Jamal Crawford. So you basically give away Nick Young for Jamal Crawford, which to me, you're more money for Jamal. Jamal is more of a, give me the ball, get out of my way type scorer. When Nick Young was a shooter, he had some lights out games, and, you kind of want veterans in that locker room, not guys who have labels on them such as losers or bad apples. And, we don't know Jamal Crawford personally. I'm sure he's a fantastic guy to have dinner with, but, you could have done better, in my opinion, with the Clippers.
If you ask me, I don't know if the Clippers got better or they got worse. I think they stayed just about the same, but with some possible chemistry issues. If you take Jamal Crawford into consideration, I don't know how many minutes they plan on playing him, but he's a ball stopper. And the last thing you want on a team with Chris Paul is a ball stopper. Now, I'm sure Chris Paul will be fine and ready for the season. I know he does have he's some sort of injury issue where it could maybe impede with the beginning of the season.
Don't take my word for it, but I think someone might have sat in his thumb on the team bus out in England, but we'll just
thumb in the bum.
Thumb in the bum.
I get it.
But I agree with you. James. I don't think that they got better. I don't think that they got worse. They signed a couple of veterans like Grant Hill. Yeah, they re-signed Billups. They just kind of put some guys there that just make you go, eh. I'm not excited. I said they could have done better. They could have got a good backup for Chris Paul. They let Nick Young walk, which he didn't sign a big deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. They could have kept him. Swaggy P always brings this fashion into the locker room. I don't know why you want that out of there, but it'll be interesting to see. They did sign him for Jamal Crawford for 4 years, so that's on their book.
I don't know about that.
They picked up Ryan Hollins for cheap money. They got some guys, but I don't see them, really doing anything.
They came into the offseason a mid-seed playoff team. They came out of the offseason a mid-seed playoff team. I don't see them rising or falling in any way, shape, or form. They're obviously not going to be able to compete with, especially Los Angeles Lakers, also not the Oklahoma City Thunder, and probably not the San Antonio Spurs either. I see either one of those 3 teams beating them in a 7-game series. The Clippers, I would put them in the confused category as well. They added some things. They subtracted some things. Overall, they're probably around the same exact team they were last year.
Now, let's keep it out west for a little while, because the west is where all the action's been happening.
It's true.
You got the main.
Isn't it always, too?
It's always the west. The west is always up to something.
The East just loses and gives it over to the west.
Exactly.
Shaq goes from Orlando to L.A. That's what always happens. Guys get big in the East and then go over to the west once they're big-time players.
Well, that's where the money's at, so that's where you got to go. Let's move on to
Showtime.
Let's move on to a loser here, and I think a lot of people, and I understand why this team is making these moves, but I can see why people still consider them losers. That's the Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
The Houston Rockets did so many moves to do so many things. They did a fantastic trade for Goran Dragic for Aaron Brooks, They then let him walk to Phoenix.
Don't
get it either. They then go after Aaron Brooks, who turned them down. He said, "No way, Jose, I'm not going back there."
They lose Kyle Lowry.
They trade Kyle Lowry away. So now they're basically left with signing Jeremy Lin to an atrocious contract.
And then amnestying possibly their best player, arguably, Luis Scola.
It just doesn't make sense. And I understand the cap situation, that they're trying to get under the cap to compete with free agents. They made moves to get a lot of draft picks to go after Dwight. They knew in their heart, which ended up being true, that Orlando was going to trade Dwight out of the East. So if you're going to trade him out of the East, you had Dallas out there, you had the Lakers, and you had Houston as a talks. And, they had a good package, but they didn't have a star in that package for, to justify. And I guess Aaron Aflalo isn't really a star either.
A good package isn't always the package that fits.
Exactly. So the Rockets are left with their thumbs in their butts, going back to thumbs in their butts. And
the theme of the new Unplugged.
They picked up Carlos Delfino, which I know Daryl Morey.
Unplugged, not Unplugged. Sorry.
Carlos Delfino, they signed him 1-year deal. They got some more scrubs here and there. They got Omer Asik to a 3-year, $25 million deal. They got Jeremy Lin. If you think Jeremy Lin's going to be a superstar, great. I don't think so. There's still 15 other points.
I feel like they're putting a lot of eggs in the Jeremy Lin basket, and he's a question mark. I see him still as a question mark. I do not have nearly enough sample size to put my confidence in Jeremy Lin as, I guess at this point, the Houston Rockets' marquee player. I don't see who else on their team you could say is their top guy.
No, they let Courtney Lee walk.
Yeah,
for nothing.
He's a Celtic now, I bbelieve.
Well, they still got Kevin Martin, but he hates it out there. He wants out.
No one really gets excited about Kevin Martin.
No, and you're hearing a lot of gripes about the style of Kevin McHale. There's a lot of issues out there with Kevin McHale, and some players didn't like him. Kyle Lowry didn't see eye to eye with him. Kevin Martin was benched, doesn't see eye to eye with him. So they're definitely in a cultural change in Houston.
You can tell they're trying to bring in draft picks, cap space, like any rebuilding team would do. Now, you lived in Houston for a couple of years, I do believe.
I did.
If I know my Jacob Noble history, what is it in Houston where they think they're going to be able to draw these free agents there rather than somewhere like Orlando or Miami or L.A. where it's warm weather and nice and beautiful and sunny all the time?
Houston's a big city. Houston's a big city, and a lot of people don't think that. It's actually the fourth largest city in the country. It's massive. There's a lot to do out there. It's hot as hell. They can have a winning team there, as they did in the 90s. But to get someone to go there is tough. Even guys who were born and raised there don't go back there when they have the opportunity. So I don't know what it is about it. Maybe the nightlife is not good enough for them. Maybe it's too hot for them. They like the hot weather. Maybe it's too hot. But to me, I think Daryl Morey sees that to get that star, you're going to have to draft them. You're not going to convince somebody to sign over there because they don't have a team around them. So, as James pointed out, you got to draft them, keep them there, and build around them. You're not going to bring someone in with no supporting cast. But that's true of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
People will go to a crappy city like Minnesota. Sorry, Minnesota. They're going to go to a crappy city like Minnesota if you got a team to build around them. Boston. We heard so much how Boston wasn't a place of free agents to come.
People call it a racist town.
They call it racist town, and nobody wants to play here. You get a coach that people want to play for. You get some winning guys, and then you see the veterans line up. And the veterans have been lining up since the Big Three came here.
Winning solves everything.
Winning solves everything. You can be in Miami,
in some
Cleveland.
cases in the NBA, losing solves it too if you end up drafting a Yao Ming or a Tim Duncan or a Dwight Howard.
Absolutely. The tank season.
Yeah.
So we're a little confused on what the Rockets are doing, but we're not so confused that we can label them losers. They were definitely losers.
They were certainly losers. They lost everything and didn't really gain much. So moving on, let's pick another winner. Since we've done a winner and then a confused and a loser, let's keep that up, that path. And how about a winner out west again? The New Orleans Hornets. I through the draft. Midwest, fine, okay. You can speak up. It's okay if you argue with me over the phone.
Yeah, we'll argue.
Over geographical information.
They're actually more east than Houston.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, Western Conference we'll call them.
We'll go to the Western Conference to the Hornets.
Eastern Conference. But anyway, the Hornets, off-season, you think trades, you think free agent signings, they were winners in the draft. They got the first overall pick. We're not slated to get that in the lottery, but did. Brought in Anthony Davis, who got some good experience on the USA team. I think he'll transition nicely into the NBA. They got Doc Rivers' kid there, Austin, who's ready to become a big-time player. Eric Gordon's still there.
Although he's unhappy.
Right. They made some moves in this offseason that I think they can carry over into a growing franchise that can possibly get real popular again.
They can. And, Eric Gordon's 23 years old. And for him to start griping about who's around his teammates and the time the team he was. He played for a bad Clippers team, and then they had an okay year once they got Blake, and then obviously they made the moves to get Chris Paul, which he understood. He went down to New Orleans, played a couple of games, was hurt, played a couple of games, was hurt, doing what he typically does. And then I don't understand all his comments, so that's going to be something to watch for this year, is what Eric Gordon's going to do, because he could essentially turn this winning category we have and make him into losers. Or confused.
If he has a bad attitude. Yeah, he probably is a little bit confused. And I think what happened with him was he scored a lot of points with the Clippers. And when you score a lot of points in the NBA, you think you're a number one guy. Eric Gordon is not a number one guy. I can tell you that right now. Very good scorer, not a great defender, little undersized for his position, but he can put the ball in the basket, and you can't fault him for that. But I think he's got a little bit of a mentality like he should be the face of the franchise. You've got this unibrow coming in that's stealing that face franchise from him, and I think that's where that unbalance is coming a little bit. So I'll be interested to see how that shakes out. But let's not forget they also got a good veteran player like Ryan Anderson, who also is not on the Magic anymore.
He's going to be bombing threes. Now looking at the Hornets, though, they're going to be a little weak inside. They let Kaman go to Dallas. They're going to be a little weak inside with two skinny guys.
Yeah, Anthony Davis got a lot of weight room work to do before he's an NBA center.
He is. But you know what? The league has turned away. We're seeing centers like LeBron James and Kevin Garnett. I mean, these are the new centers of the league. The traditional centers long gone. Outside of Bynum and Dwight, and a couple of bozos here and there that people will argue with me all day on, there really isn't anybody. Eric Dampier. Well, I was going to talk about Brook Lopez. We'll get to that stiff later on.
Yeah.
But, the Hornets are going to be exciting. And for Eric Gordon to gripe now is kind of silly. Go out there. You're still going to be the number one scorer on the team. That's a fact. You're going to get the most shots on the team. That's a fact. Austin Rivers is still trying to learn how to play the point. And you got Anthony Davis, who won't step on anybody's toes. He's going to get out of your way, if anything.
Yeah.
He's just going to play defense, rebound, and he'll score when he gets those rebounds.
Right, and I don't think that this team is someone who's going to come out and win right away. I'm putting them under the winners category because they came out of the offseason a lot better than they came into it, and I think that's what makes you an off-season winner.
They'll probably be in the lottery maybe one more year after this. They'll surprise me if they make it to playoffs, but I think they're going to be a low lottery.
They're building a great base that could turn into something
they got a
special.
New owner. They're going to work on, building that franchise up. Lead the conspiracies to other podcasts. We're not going to sit here and talk about new owner, NBA team, own the team. That's why they got the first pick, regardless. Anthony Davis is going to go down south. He's going to party it up in Mardi Gras. He's going to take over the lead in those commercials. No more dancing Chris Paul for Mardi Gras. We're going to have a dancing unibrow, and it's going to be fantastic.
I like it. They should put they should try to find a way to put beads around the unibrow itself. Maybe put a little peg in the middle of his head and then hang the beads from it. He's embracing the unibrow thing. I don't think I'm even making fun of him in a way here.
He trademarked it.
He trademarked the idea of a unibrow on a person in the NBA.
If he was really self-conscious on that, he'd shave it. He'd get that trimmed up. And
anyone can do it. I have to do it myself. If I let this thing grow, it'll be a force between my eyebrows, too.
It happens to the best of us.
It's just not socially acceptable for me. He's a big-time NBA player. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, when you're 7 feet, you can walk around and do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, the unibrow's cool now.
The unibrow is very cool. Let's go to the Eastern Conference and pick a team out there for a confused-ass team. And I know everyone in New Jersey, Brooklyn is going to call up right now and blow up our phone bank and yell at me. What the Nets? What were you doing, New Jersey? And to me, James, it rests on the Brook Lopez and Chris Humphrey signings. Mm-hmm. I understand why they did it to get Dwight, but you had to. I mean, we're not in those conversations, but you got to think that they had a better feeling that the Magic weren't going to make that deal. The Magic were kind of hesitant with that deal. They didn't want to just give him up just because that's what everybody wanted. That's what the Brooklyn Nets wanted. That's what Jay-Z wanted. I'm sick and tired of hearing Jay-Z's name thrown around every 2 days in the NBA. He doesn't play basketball. Wear your suit. Sit on the sidelines. But what are you doing signing Brook Lopez to a max deal? And I have debates with people saying that he's tradable. Who the hell would trade for Brook Lopez max deal? I wouldn't do it, if you paid for it.
If you ask me who Brook Lopez is, I would tell you he's a step above Robin Lopez. I don't think he's special at all. He is 7 feet tall. He's big. He's strong. He's got some decent inside post moves, really offensively and defensively, but he's nothing special. He's not going to put you over the top. When you want to pay a big guy a max contract, we're talking about guys like Dwight Howard, like Yao Ming, like Tim Duncan that we've mentioned. You don't give a stiff like Brook Lopez the max contract. You're just going to be disappointed with him, and you're going to have Brooklyn Nets fans complaining throughout his entire contract about how terrible the contract is. I'm sure they've already started.
Basically, you got Joe Johnson for, I believe, 3 more years. You got Brook Lopez now for 4. You got Chris Humphries for 3. You got Deron Williams for 5.
This team better be damn good.
This is your team. This is your championship team right here. And can you look in the mirror and say you're satisfied? They're going to be good. They'll make the playoffs. They'll advance a round or 2.
Will they even still win the Atlantic Division? I might still like the Celtics in that division.
No, and the Knicks. And the Sixers. You got competition is what I'm saying.
Right, yeah, the Atlantic Division is definitely
easy.
Beefed up, way more than it used to
and
be.
And even the Raptors, they made some moves. We'll get to them later, but we'll get to all those teams later, really. If anything, the AFC East, the AFC East.
Oh, the AFC East. You talking about the New York Jets here today?
Yeah, the Atlantic Division probably got the best out of all of them. They added the most talent out of everybody. They loaded up, and you're going to see 4 playoff teams out of there, in my opinion. You're going to see 4 legit playoff teams.
There's a good chance of that.
Based on last year, and add the Nets. But to me, the Nets, they got Gerald Wallace for, I think, 2 more years, who's declining in skills. Fantastic player. Love him to death.
Crash.
He's getting old.
We're a big fan of him over the other podcast.
I mean, he's fantastic. But you're asking, if you're asking Joe Johnson and Deron Williams to coexist, and you have no interior play, in my opinion. You got Humphries who's going to crash the boards, and Brook Lopez, who, going back to ball stoppers, he gets the ball, and the rest of the offense just stops and lets him take his 5-10 minutes to make his moves. Because he's very old school in that sense, almost the way Al Jefferson is, where they just move slowly, but he'll get the job done. He just somehow gets those offensive moves done. So I'm not a big fan of what the Nets did in signing Brook Lopez and Humphries. To me, that hurt them getting that 3rd star that they're desperately looking for. And I understand you could package Wallace and Lopez, but really, who's going to take those 2 guys for one of their aces? Would Philly do it for Bynum? No. Would the Lakers do it for Dwight? No. Would Utah do it for Al Jefferson? Maybe. But that's the kind of stuff you're talking about.
Who are the winners on this team? We listed a lot of really good players. Darren Williams, Joe Johnson. These guys have never been proven big-time winners.
No, and
especially not Brook Lopez or Chris Humphries.
And think about the
we know nothing. We know nothing about how those 5 guys are going to coexist. 5 very good players. We know nothing about them yet. So I wouldn't get too hyped about the Brooklyn Nets just yet. And if they think that this team that I'm looking at right now is going to get them to a championship and have them competing with the Miami Heat at any sort of competitive level, I think that they've got another thing coming in that situation. But have fun moving to Brooklyn. I'm sure that you're going to make a lot of money.
The thing with Brooklyn is the defense. Where is it? Where is it going to come from? I know Brook blocks shots because he's 7 feet and he's 280. Gerald Wallace is a great defensive player who's diminished his skills as time has caught up to him. Deron Williams is, effort's always in question. Joe Johnson, he's okay. Humphries, not really. And then their bench, who they really have off their bench besides Marshawn Brooks? I mean, it's a very thin bench.
It's not exactly an all-star defender.
And the thing we learned out there is that, you need a deep bench. And the teams that don't have it, we saw the Miami Heat when they lost to Dallas, didn't have a bench. We saw, when the Celtics lost to the Lakers in the finals, they didn't have a bench. They were basically left with Rasheed Wallace starting and, trying to scrap anybody they could find out in the forum out there to step on the floor, the Staples Center rather, to step on the floor and pitch in for a couple minutes. I mean, you need a bench in this league, and you need a good solid 8-9, and I don't think the Nets got that. They're going to be exciting. You're going to play some good music in the house, going to Jay-Z, some new soundtrack going out there. He's gonna sue every chef that works in there. So if you're a chef, don't work in Brooklyn because he's gonna sue you for millions of dollars because you can't cook to his standards. And it'll be fun out there. We plan to attend some games and check it out.
I would love to. Yeah.
Well, we're credentialed out there.
Yeah, we might have a couple hookups out there.
We have hookups in the New York area.
We'll keep that on the hush hush. Not exactly street legal. Let's move on to another loser here, one that we haven't mentioned yet, that I can't believe we haven't mentioned yet. And that is the biggest loser of the offseason. We already mentioned Dwight Howard probably like 1,600 times in this podcast. And if you listen to the other one, we don't mention him at all. # no Dwight talk. But Dwight Howard, the team he was leaving, is the Orlando Magic, who right now, if you look at them, I think their best player might be Hedo Turkoglu. And that is bad for their future. Does not bode well.
Al Harrington has something to say about that comment you just made.
A little bit of competition.
Al Harrington has a problem with that.
We might have to tweet each of them and see what they have to say, get a little input from either one of them.
Well, Al Harrington might be working on a mixtape this summer, so he's a little busy working on his raps. And now he's going to be down in Miami.
He might have some other priorities that throw off his game.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's out of Denver. There's no rap game in Denver.
Well,
he's down in South Beach.
Maybe Turkoglu is also working on a rap album, maybe a clothing line, Turk Unlimited or something like that.
Either way, they're a team full of role players. And They got a lot of draft picks. They re-signed Jameer Nelson. Don't know why. Should have let him walk.
Yeah.
He's not been the same since he made an All-Star game in 2009, which I'm so confused
If you're building for the future, this is not your future point guard here.
No, and I can't even, equate this team to any other team.
Are they still paying Gilbert Arenas?
I believe so.
Well, the amnesty.
They got to pay him.
Yeah.
You pay him regardless.
That's like $40 million.
It's a lot of money.
It doesn't affect your cap, but
it's still money you got to pay.
Exactly.
It's still on the bottom line expense, and the owner down there and the new GM, and they have a model that they're going to use. And
was that lose a lot and then hopefully get another Dwight Howard with the first pick?
Rod came from the Thunder, so yes, they're going to do the Oklahoma City Thunder method of just get a bad team, build through the draft, see what you can find in your draft picks, and that's why they got 6 draft picks added for Dwight Howard.
Mm-hmm.
People went everywhere in that trade. Andrew Bynum ended up in Philadelphia, and Aaron Aflalo and Al Harrington, who are 2 fine players. If you have a championship team and they're your 6 and 7 guys, or you're 5 and 6,
right?
They're nice guys to have.
Aflalo, nice guy to come off the bench.
Fantastic, and he might blow up this year, and he might put up 18 points and
maybe pick him up in fantasy. And,
fantasy sleepers.
Yeah, I remember when he came out as a free agent in that past.
Bring
it up. That last free agent class, when he was a free agent, people went nuts about him, like he was going to be the next savior of some team. It's Aaron Aflalo. Let's all calm down. He's a nice bench player, good defender, can shoot the 3. Let's relax before we pay him a max contract.
He's a little limited there. So, the Magic did what they did. Did they get the best package? I think that's still up for debate. Do we know every package that's out there? No, we don't.
There's a lot of packages out there.
Crickets for that joke. There's a lot of packages out there that were offered, rumored, said to be happening. Didn't really happen. Did they take the best deal out there? Depends on who you ask. Orlando likes the deal, obviously. They didn't have to make the move if they didn't want to move. They took it because they wanted the draft picks. I understand it. I still have them as a bunch of losers. Let's pick another winner. Let's stay in the East. And we talked about this team, and I think they did a really good job this offseason. And they let Elton Brand walk. They traded Andre Iguodala. But if you traded those 2 guys for Nick Young and Andrew Bynum, I think you did okay.
Yeah.
Then that's the 76ers, in case you're not a basketball fan.
Right. If you're just listening to the podcast or any NBA podcast for the first time, the team we're talking about, the Philadelphia 76ers, you bring in a guy like Andrew Bynum, that's a franchise changer. He is at times, one of the best big men in the league, 1 or 2, obviously.
One of our colleagues here, Peyton Wales, is probably jumping up and down right now because they're talking about Peyton Wales. He's always doing his thing, and we love Peyton to death, and he loves Andrew Bynum, and he would get for him. He would go bananas to Bynum. He's been talking about Bynum for many years to us.
Yeah, Andrew is very close and special to his heart. But, there have been times where he's been absolutely dominant, throwing up 20-20 games and sometimes carrying the Lakers to big-time wins.
And we talked about it. The true center is gone, and he's one of the last ones.
He's one of them, and he's tough to stop for guys who aren't true centers.
Especially since he's getting his Zen on.
You do trade Andre Iguodala, who had a great run in the Olympics this year. I thought he was really good off their bench.
Good.
Yeah, and he's a fantastic player. But when you lose him and get a guy like Bynum, you're giving up something that you had a glut of, which is wing players. You got Evan Turner, you've got Thaddeus Young, you brought in Nick Young. You get a guy who's very tough to find, a big guy of Andrew Bynum's quality that has his size. I think that's a great move for the 76ers. I think they improved their team a lot. I'm pretty sure Doug Collins is going to be happy with that, even though I'm pretty sure he popped the boing every time Andre Iguodala made a big play in the Olympics.
Absolutely. But going back to the 76ers, you got to look at the 2 things that, this trade does. Last year, they struggled to score inside. They couldn't do it. And our good buddy Brian Geltzeiler has said on this podcast many times they should have traded Andre Iguodala last year for Al Jefferson, a low-post scorer. But it ends up turning out to be a better move because they turned Andre Iguodala into Andrew Bynum, who is, a premier center, a all-star caliber center. And since Dwight's gone, you're going to see him and Tyson Chandler and Amari Stoudemire being the centers of the Eastern Conference going forward, unless you think Brook Lopez is going to get in there. But exactly. So they solved the inside scoring and defense.
They did lose Lou Williams.
But they still have
Jrue Holiday, who was a much better player than
Lou
he is.
Williams
Definitely a better starter to distribute on your team. And they also brought in Jason Richardson, I do believe.
I believe so.
So they've got guards, they've got wings, they've got big guys.
Lou Williams' job was to score, wasn't to be a point guard. And that's what they brought Nick Young in and Jay Rich in there for. So they got both of those guys in there to score, and they got Bynum. But the key to it all, is they're giving Meatwad some more playing time. And if you don't know who Meatwad is, Meatwad is Evan Turner, who there was an audio clip last year during the playoffs where he was speaking to a reporter in the locker room, and I don't know if it's the radio, the way he talks, combo of everything, he basically sounded like Meatwad from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. So that's why we give him that nickname. So he's going to get the torch. He's going to be the main scorer for that team. And, you know, he played well last year. He stepped up.
He has shown in stretches that he can be a number 1 or a number 2 scorer on a pretty decent team. I'm not saying that the Philadelphia 76ers are going to be a championship contender. I wouldn't say that at all. But they're young, they've got a lot of talent, and they're moving in the right direction. So I would say that they're a winner in the offseason.
They were. You know, they got rid of a couple dead weights.
And they're making moves that actually make sense instead of just bringing in guys. They're trading the right guys who are expendable, Arnold Schwarzenegger, that they already have guys in their positions, and bringing in needs like Andrew Bynum and size.
It's definitely a good move, and I think we all, everyone.
Expendable is a good movie. I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it. Have not seen it, so.
All right, my jokes are terrible right now. I'm nervous. It's my first Unplugged podcast. Give me a break.
And first face-to-face podcast, so we're looking into each other's eyes as we speak.
It's very intimate. We're just literally at a desk with a phone on speaker in between us, staring into each other's eyes.
No pads, no nothing. No, that's a lie. We got to write stuff down. We're drawing faces and trees.
we should probably another programming note. If you're a listener to Unplugged, usually you're used to guests on the show. This week we're not doing a guest just because I was the new guy in town. We need to get you acquainted with me, and me and Jacob build a rapport, and then we'll move on, bring in some guests. I'm sure you've got them all lined up, ready to go.
Oh, absolutely. We'll do the shameless plugs at the end of the show. You know?
Sure.
We'll get to that. But let's get to another confused-ass team. And I think Knicks fans will actually agree with me here that they had a confused-ass summer.
Well, the Knicks fans are never happy with the Knicks.
Oh, then should they be?
No, I guess not.
When was the last time they won a title? 79? 77? I don't know. Way past before any of us were alive, so it doesn't matter. When you're talking about, old-time basketball, it doesn't matter. We're in a new era, new modern era.
Right.
And the Knicks did some things. I like the Camby signing. I like the Jason Kidd signing. But you let Jeremy Lin walk. And I understand that the Rockets made a contract unfavorable for teams to sign. However, and we didn't talk about this with the Rockets when we talked about Jeremy Lin, is he's gonna get the money back for the franchise. So the money issue to me is not that big of a deal. But when he's your best player in Houston, that's a problem. When he's on the Knicks, go for it. Sell thousands and millions of jerseys. Market to China. Do whatever the hell you want with Jeremy Lin. Have a parade every Sunday for him. I don't care what you do. You sign that guy because he's a cash cow. We saw ticket sales go up. We saw the merchandise go up. He can play.
Lin's sanity happen before our very eyes.
Yeah, I mean, he can play. But can he play as an ace? No.
Obviously not.
If he's out there with Jason Kidd and Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire, you got to double those guys.
Right, I'm not big on Lin, but compared to the alternative, what they went with, which is a combination of Jason Kidd and Raymond Felton, if I'm the Knicks, I might have wanted to just stick with Jeremy Lin.
Yeah, he's young, and he's only 23 years old, and we know what Raymond Felton's going to do. Raymond Felton's going to get fat in the middle of the year like he always does.
He's going to be a ball stopper. He's going to take a lot of shots and make a couple.
He doesn't share the ball, as we saw with Ty Lawson days. He couldn't handle that.
Mm-hmm.
Denver had to get rid of him. And everywhere he goes, he doesn't seem to fit in. He doesn't have a position. And I don't know if it's the fitting in, pun intended, size of him, or if it's just he just doesn't fit in with coaches or thinks, differently.
If you can't fit in with George Karl, I don't know who you can fit in with. But I'm low on Raymond Felton. Jason Kidd's 1,000 years old at this point. I may have gone with Jeremy Lin if I were the New York Knicks, but if they don't want to sign that huge contract and fill up a lot of their cap with Houston, then so be it.
Yeah, I mean, they complain that the Rockets changed the contract on him and that was unfair. Listen, they can change the offer sheet 100 times before we decide to sign it. That's the point of an offer sheet. You make an offer, he doesn't like it, you adjust the offer. That's how it works. If you signed a contract that had an offer sheet that said this, and then they ripped that one up and did a new one, then you can kind of see the gripes. But anyways, regardless, the Knicks weren't going to match it. They just wanted to make it seem like to the fan base that they wanted to make it, but they couldn't because someone wouldn't let them.
And honestly, I put the Knicks under the confused category, especially because I'm not sure they needed to do a whole lot in the offseason. I think that the problems with them are in-house. I don't think bringing in new guys or getting rid of some other ones are going to make a difference here. The guys that matter here are Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony, and those guys need to commit to defense and commit to winning. And until they do that and until they have that setting the pace for the team, I think that it's not going to matter who they bring in. Marcus Camby and Jason Kidd aren't going to change that. They need an attitude change between those two players if they want to start getting on a winning path rather than an attention path.
We can spend all day talking about the Knicks because I have my own, beliefs on them. I thought that bringing in Carmelo was probably one of the worst things they could have done. I liked the team pre-Melo trade they had, a stacked roster.
Wilson Chandler, Danilo Gallinari.
They had
guys.
so many guys, and then they had Amari, and they were playing the best basketball you've seen them play. Now, I just don't think Amari and Melo can coexist together. And I
think they needed to make that move, though. If you're the Knicks and your ultimate goal is to be super relevant again, be one of the top teams, you got to get a guy like Carmelo.
Yeah.
Unless you're the Detroit Pistons in 2005, you're not going to get to the championship without a big marquee player.
Absolutely, and
it's such a rare thing to happen.
It is, but so then, to me, the Knicks don't have a plan. It was always, this is the best player, let's get him, and this is the best player, let's get him, and this is the best player, let's get him. Like, they don't have a plan on how to build the team. I don't think they have a
blueprint.
They're
like the show Lost. The show Lost. They said that they had everything planned out since the first episode, but everybody knew they were just making it up as they went along. As new information presented itself, they changed things around in the show. It's the same thing that the Knicks do. They'll always tell you that they have a plan for the future, but they're just going to make it up as they go along, and so far it hasn't been working.
Just kind of like we're making up this podcast as we go along.
Yeah.
We're just bouncing around, picking up teams, and seeing what's so funny about this NBA offseason.
Let's move on to another winner here, Jacob, shall we?
Yeah, I'm depressed with these losers.
Let's see. We've got 3 here left that's on our docket. Let's get the Celtics out of the way. I know we want to eventually do that. We are located in the great city of Boston right now.
Yes, we are. We will be traveling this summer and season. We'll be doing shows in your city.
Right, yeah. We'll be setting up in local establishments all over the country with the show.
As in 30 miles south of Boston, maybe 30 miles north of Boston.
Maybe we'll show up at Ben Kinne's house and do it in his basement.
Yeah, let's do that. That would be a fantastic idea. No, but seriously, we might make it to New York. That's probably as far east as we'll make it this season. Well, speaking of sponsors, get some sponsors. We'll come to your town and do it. Hey, if you want to host us in your house, we'll do it there too.
Tweet us.
Tweet us. You know how to tweet us. So let's talk about the Celtics because I also write for Celtics Life on the side. I put my green goggles on, my green hat.
CelticsLife.com plug.
There we go. Shameless plug. So I decided to write a piece because I felt like everyone was talking about the loss of Ray Allen, how could the big three break up, and oh my God. But the smart fans out there realize the Celtics got better.
Not to be a positive Peter, as far as the Boston Celtics go, I don't even know if that's a phrase. That just came out right now.
It's a fantastic phrase.
But if I want to be a positive Peter, Ray Allen, I'm not sure he's actually the best fit for the Boston Celtics.
No.
And they did lose him, yes, and he was, one of the faces of the reformation of the team. They brought in that championship and all. We love Ray Allen. I honestly think they're a better team now with Jason Terry and Jeff Green in his stead, and Courtney Lee, if you want to add him into the equation. Ray Allen, he's not a guy who's going to create his own shot, and he's also not a starter at this point in his career, at least not with the Boston Celtics. They decided to go with Avery Bradley, and boom, it was a good decision.
It was a fantastic decision, and, people who aren't familiar with the story, everyone hears, the bad apple that is Rajon Rondo.
Right.
Let's face it, and I have to say this every time I debate people about this. Ask yourself about Rajon Rondo's attitude. Is he pissing and moaning that he's not getting enough shots, that he's not the first one introduced, that he's not the first one at the podium? No. He's complaining about how to win basketball games. That's who you want on your team. So he went up to Doc and said, Doc, put Avery Bradley in. They practice every day. They're scrimmaging against each other. Rondo's not stupid. He knew the offense would be much faster with Avery Bradley, who can run, actually. Ray Allen,
defense is much better.
And the defense is much better. And so when that move happened, the Celtics went on a tear. They turned their ship around. They were talked about missing the playoffs before that moment. Playoffs? You kidding me? We're just trying to win a game. But Ray Allen is in a better situation, and we'll get to that later in this podcast as well. But looking at the Celtics, they improved. If you don't think so,
they needed a guy on the bench who could create his own shot.
Jason Terry.
They didn't have that. Rajon Rondo was the only player on the team, really, who could create his own shot. You can say Paul Pierce as well.
Yep.
But usually those guys are on the court together, and when the second unit came in,
it was stagnant.
They better have Rajon Rondo on the court with them if they want to score. Now with Jason Terry, now with Jeff Green, you've got some more options coming off the bench that can actually create their own shot, and they should be able to produce some points with their bench.
The thing that made this a winning-losing situation by far was getting Courtney Lee in here. Because if they didn't get Courtney Lee, Avery Bradley's out until December, everybody. And it pains me to say that. He's one of my binkies. I've been raving about him since he came out. But he's got double shoulder surgery. Doc said he's out until December. they're not going to rush him back. He's a young talent for this team in the long term. He's going to be an excellent role player. But getting Courtney Lee, because I believe Courtney Lee is going to start the season as a starter, and Jason Terry will get comfortable in his role. But another thing that brings everybody back to this is two guys who are out. So we'll give them a little soundbite for these two guys who.
Guess who's back again? Shady back. Hello, friend. Guess who's back?
And, they're going to contribute.
Their hearts are beating, which is good news.
That's a fantastic thing. I should have did a boing or a zing right there. That was a fantastic. That's probably your best joke today so far.
Yeah.
But, they're both back. They both love the culture, and that tells you something about the Celtics. So I think they're winners. They're much deeper. They kicked out some of the bad apples, and they added
like you
some
said
good
in your fine article, they were quiet, but they did a lot to improve themselves. So I'll look forward to seeing that from them. But really, if you look at it, they're in the same position that they were. They're probably the second-best team in the East, and they'll probably lose to Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals again.
In 7 again, yep.
Right.
Typically. That's basically what we're picking there.
So they did improve themselves, but they didn't improve enough to really change anything in the landscape of the Eastern Conference.
But then again, it was Game 7. They were there until the fourth quarter.
Right, tied going into the fourth. Anything's possible, as Kevin said himself.
Anything is possible. So, Celtic fans are very optimistic that it's not over yet. We've been thinking, year after year after year, when's it going to end? When's it going to end? Not this year.
Everyone says rebuild it, and then they start winning again. It's like, oh, why would we ever say that KG should be traded or let go?
Now, let's pick a loser, because I always want to get these losers out of my face.
Allahu Seher.
And the one team that had me scratching my head all offseason, more than any team out there, if you could hear the head-scratching sound, was the Phoenix Suns. And what really put me over the edge with the Phoenix Suns was that they signed Jermaine O'Neal, which to me, do they not look at history? Do they not see, what's going on out there? Jermaine O'Neal again.
I don't understand how he has a job in the NBA right now. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, everyone knows he's going to play 15 games, collect his paychecks, and hang out. And I don't even know how much they paid him. They probably shouldn't have paid him anything. $1.4 million, whatever. It's a little bit of cash in his pocket for a guy who's made over $250 million. That's how much money he's netted in his whole career.
And I don't understand it from Jermaine O'Neal's perspective. The thing he's been saying over the past 3 seasons is, I want to win a championship. I want to win a championship. My reason to come back into the NBA is because I want to win a championship. What, are you going to do that with the Phoenix Suns?
Well, maybe he didn't think that Steve Nash was gone. And he saw it. He was like, oh, shit.
Oh, Steve's not here. Was I not signing with the Los Angeles Lakers? This is Phoenix?
Oh, man, but, they did a couple decent moves. They picked up Beasley, take a shot on him, let him be on a crappy team, give him the ball, see what he can do. Hopefully,
he's going to score points.
Hopefully he doesn't smoke a lot of weed.
Smoke a lot of weed. He's going to do both those things.
They also got another athletic stud who never really put it together, Shannon Brown. But, I mean, to me, they traded Nash for pennies. I feel like they could have got a better deal.
Grant Hill walked.
Jared Dudley's still hanging around. They got the other retarded Lopez brother.
No, he's not there. He's somewhere else,
Robin?
I believe. Yeah, I think Robin Lopez moved on.
Huh.
We'll have to look that up.
Yeah, we'll have to check out Robin Williams and see where he's at.
Oh, Robin Williams. We'll check on Patch Adams to see what team he ended up on. Don't worry, Jacob. It's not your fault.
It's never my fault. So, yeah, Robin Lopez, I mean, who the Suns have, what are they doing, why are they signing these guys for multiple years? It's just confusing as hell to me. So, to me, the Phoenix Suns are one of the bigger losers out there. He's a new Hornets.
He's a Hornet.
He signed the Hornets. Winners!
Ding, 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 ding.
Let's get them back into the bell noise. But, yeah, so he's down in the winner now. So, my point exactly. The Phoenix Suns lost. They gained nothing. And we're going to move on to another confused team?
Sure.
Let's go to the Mavericks.
I would love to talk about the Mavericks.
The Mavericks are...
There's another team, like the other confused team the Clippers talk about. They made a lot of moves, but they didn't really go anywhere. They're probably about the same talent level. They just have different players there.
I mean, they re-signed Delonte West, which is okay.
I think the Darren Collison move is the one that stands out the most. They gave up, Ian Mahinmi and some other bozo?
That's it.
I thought there was
it was a draft.
Dante Jones? Or no, they
got Dahani and Darren.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of changes it a little bit.
Yeah, that is... maybe Ian Mahinmi's better than I think he is. But Darren Collison is a very good point guard who I think will bring a nice young spark to that team.
And if I'm not mistaken...
Jason Kidd was really slowing him down, to be honest with you.
Well...
As much of a huge fan of Jason Kidd I am.
What was the statistic? 80% of his shots were three-pointers?
Yeah.
He was not going inside the arc on either side of the court. He was arc-to-arc playing. But that's Jason Kidd at 39 years old and, can barely move. I mean, he probably the first one in the tub and the last one out of the tub. So he spent
a little tubby too.
He's getting a little tubby. But I mean, I did like what they did with O.J. Mayo. I thought they got a good steal for him. But they gambled. They went after Dwight. They went after Darren. And they got neither of them. That was their marquee thing. They're over the hill, and so they have to move on. So, to me, I was a little confused because they packaged up everything to make these big splashes, and the splash didn't really happen. So, to me, that's what makes them confused to us. So, after those two moves failed, they went out and patched up what they could. So that's kind of where we stand there.
They brought in some guys. They lost some guys. And the O.J. Mayo deal is pretty interesting. When you release him into the world and give him a lot more playing time, I think he might be able to really turn into what we always thought he could be with the Memphis Grizzlies. They sort of bottled him down. They put a couple guys in front of him that were a little bit questionable starting over him. I think this new atmosphere will be good for him. And, we're looking at the Dallas Mavericks roster right now, and adding Chris Kaman is not bad at all. Did add to that team as well. He's played with Dirk before in the German national team because I guess Chris Kaman's 8,000th generation grandmother was born in Germany, so he was allowed to play for the team. And, so they got big guys. They've got Elton Brand added to that team who came over from the Philadelphia 76ers.
They're a very veteran team, and the thing to me that, you're looking at this roster, they lack athleticism. They really do.
Yeah.
There's not an athletic guy on there outside of O.J. Mayo.
And Sean Marion still has a little bit of athleticism.
Yeah,
Roddy Boubois, if you can get him going.
So, they got young guys at the shooting guards, but I think they have to move some guys this offseason. They got to get rid of some of these veterans, maybe get some younger and move forward because Dirk's only got a couple of years left, and who knows if he'll play. He just got married. He's, living the life and playing the Olympics. He's going to get worn down. So, hopefully Mark Cuban has a plan, but, if you said that to his face, he'd punch you in the mouth for saying that.
Right,
so.
and they're like any other Western Conference team we've talked about. You've got the Lakers and you've got the Thunder. You can bring in all the guys you want. You're not going to be able to compete with those two teams. So if you're bringing veterans at this point, you're not going to compete for a championship, but you will make it pretty deep into the playoffs, probably one of the last four teams in it in the West. And, they'll be an interesting team to watch, but they're not going to win it all.
That point you just made is why I'm okay with the moves that the Rockets are making and the moves that the Orlando Magic are making, because they see that.
You might as well rebuild.
You don't want to, the Nets are doing opposite of what we just discussed, that, you're not going to get to that talent level, so you got to hope that you get the number one pick and draft Noel Nerlens or whatever his name is. Those kind of caliber guys that come out of nowhere that just become stars like Anthony Davis. So, you got to get that guy and hope he turns into something special.
And Dallas Mavericks fans aren't really indicative in their owner. They're pretty smart fans. They want to win. And you got to convince them that you can be a winning product if you want them to come to the
They'll make the playoffs with this roster.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm just confused because they
it's not like Dirk Nowitzki's not still a top 10 player, top 7 maybe.
Absolutely is. And they got a lot of talent, but to me they kind of moved to stagnant compared to what they were saying. What they were saying they were going to do and what they did has me confused. And that's why they're in our...
They lost out on a couple different sweepstakes, the Darren and the Dwight, and that was their main goal. But, they made up with it with some veteran guys, and don't forget Vince Carter's still on that team, so he'll do absolutely nothing. Speaking of Vince Carter, is Tracy McGrady still in the Hawks?
I believe he is. He's going to keep playing until they kick him out of the league. Yeah. Him and his lazy eye.
We don't even need to talk about the Hawks, but I consider them a loser because they never do anything. Well, let's move on to another winner. Let's stay positive here for a second and talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think they made a lot of good moves this offseason.
They did a lot of good things, in my opinion.
Now, they kind of had to. Kevin Love had called them out, said, why aren't you putting some talent around me? Now, they already had Ricky Rubio in there, who I think is a very interesting player. I'd like to see him get a lot more minutes this year. I think he should be the majority of the minute player rather than Luke Ridnour at the point guard position. But they got some other guys in there as well, and one guy I want to talk about is Brandon Roy, who retired. But now it looks like he made a pretty decent recuperation from what looked like to be some career-ending injuries. And if he comes back to full strength like he was with the Portland Trailblazers when he was one of the a lot of focus was on him with those Trailblazers in those playoff series. He was pretty intense. Now, if he comes back to that level again, that is a steal.
The risk-reward for that signing makes absolute sense for the team.
I think it's low risk, high reward.
You pay him $10 million over 2 years. That's nothing in the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, we could get that contract when we made the NBA. I mean, that's just the average NBA for middle of the road guys. So, and Brandon's got a lot to prove. So, he's not gonna he's not going to get hurt. Well, he's not going to get hurt. He probably is going to get hurt. But they also picked up Andrei Kirilenko, which is, another key player that can help them, learn the game because they need veterans out there to, teach those guys. They did lose Darko, I believe. I don't think they brought Darko back, if I'm not mistaken. And then they drafted, who's that Russian, Shved?
Someone who's going to be friends with Andrei Kirilenko,
probably. He's Andrei Kirilenko's best friend.
Yeah.
They picked up him, and find his name for you, but he did very well in the Olympics.
I think Kirilenko is going to be an absolutely huge pickup. Now, he took a year off during the lockout year. But this is a guy who's always been sort of a role player on teams, so he knows his role. When he's out there with Ricky Rubio and Kevin Love, he's going to fit right in, and I think he's coming off of a great Olympics. Him and the Russian team was
don't forget Nikolov.
Didn't they come out with the bronze, Russian team? I believe they did.
They did.
And they've got, of course, like you said, Niko Pekovic, who my colleague Ben Cadet would make sure to mention his armpits and how bad they smell at this time.
Let's see, this guy, Alexei Shved is a young kid's name. He's a rookie this year. It's from Russia, and, they got the Russian connection going out there with all those guys. So they got to play some hard-nosed defense, I think, this year, which is something that they needed. They could score with the best of them. With Kevin Love on that team, the offense will always move with his fantastic outlet passes. I mean, he should write the book on outlet passes the same way J.J. Redick wrote the book on shooting.
The book on shooting jump shots.
Which, if you haven't bought that DVD, we highly recommend it.
In Soviet Russia, ball shoots you.
Basically. Let's move on. We got 3 more teams that we wanted to discuss here.
Yeah, we better fly through. What do we got, 9 minutes?
We do got 9 minutes
on
the
podcast.
We got some rapid fire. We're going to go with the Pacers. We're a little confused on the Pacers. I mean, we pointed out that they traded Darren Carlson and Dhani Jones for
Ian Mahinmi.
I guess Larry Bird wanted to do one more move before he retired. I guess. I don't know. They re-signed Hibbert Max deal, which you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do that. You don't let him walk. And it's not like you could negotiate.
You're not going to find size like him that has that sort of talent and not pay the max dollars.
And when we had the Pro Basketball Talk regular podcast, I was high on him when he came out.
Sure.
I hated him in college, but then as I saw how hard he worked and I, read up a little bit on his regimen and his body fat's down.
He had a great year.
He had a
he had a really good year. But I really wanted the Pacers to do more. After the year they had and how much we got excited over them, at least I did. I don't know if everyone did. Don't let me speak for you. But I was excited on the Pacers. I wanted to see a bigger offseason out of them. But in the end, all they really did was lose Darren Carlson.
Yeah, and same thing with the Philadelphia 76ers. You have a plethora of players in the wing position with Granger and Paul George, and now you got Iman in there.
Hill.
Yeah, George Hill's still there. You got a lot of guys, and I thought you could package up and get another star. You could even
That's what they need.
You could even package Roy Hibbert and one other player, and you might have gotten a Dwight Howard.
Yeah, and you already got a
Andrew Bynum.
Center. You got Ian Mahinmi. You're all set.
Yeah, you would have had a Dwight Howard or an Andrew Bynum. You could have gotten a marquee player. But who says they're not? They still could do that. We'll see what happens.
And maybe they see something in DJ Augustine that I don't. But I don't see it with him. I don't see him being able to come in and be an improvement over Darren Carlson on that team. I don't see that at all out of him.
No, DJ's never came out of his shell. We waited and waited and waited. He was with a bad Bobcats team for many years. Highly touted out of college.
Even on the Bobcats, you got to shoot better than 35%.
He's not a scorer, but we'll see. We'll give him the benefit of doubt to start the Pacers. We'll see. It's the same thing I always say with stars. You complain about winning and not playing with good players. When you got the good players, you shut up.
Right.
You just shut up and play. And we'll see what DJ can do. He's going to be backup point guard, so he's not going to be the lead point guard. And I know why the Bobcats got rid of him, because you want Kimba to start. You want to get Kimba the ball and run it out there. So we decided not to talk about the Bobcats. I apologize. It happened.
They were originally on our list, and, like we're seeing right now, we have time constraints. We can't talk about the Bobcats. I'm apologizing. So all the Charlotte Bobcat fans out there, we won't talk about
all 15 of you.
They're terrible.
All 15 of you.
One
Bobcat
for each
fans.
win.
Basically, right? So let's move on to losers, who I scratched my head for about 40 minutes after I saw this transaction. What the hell were the Toronto Raptors doing signing Landry Fields?
I don't know.
I sat there and I said,
how much did they pay him?
3 years, $20 million or something like that. Well, we'll pull this up. But
Yikes.
They signed Landry Fields.
Just because Spike Lee wears your jersey doesn't mean you deserve $20 million.
I mean, Spike Lee wears a lot of jerseys. And they got guys like John Lucas, and they picked up Aaron Gray. I mean, these are just...
Woof. Yeah, well,
I mean,
but you know what? They're Raptors.
3 years,
That's who they are.
They are Raptors.
Maybe they're not the most marquee players, but they'll fit right in with the Toronto Raptors, who will wallow in less than mediocrity for another 5 years.
I mean, they drafted well.
Sorry if I sound a little bit like Bill Walton there.
It happens. Do we want Bill Walton up here on the podcast?
Wallow in underground depths that will never reach the Earth's surface.
As you guys know, Bill Walton is a science fan. So, but going back to the Raptors real quick, they got some young players that you have to be excited for. Through the draft.
I like Bargnani.
Like Bargnani. I like DeRozan, even though I think he's a bad apple.
Yeah.
That's just me. I think his attitude's a little piss poor. But, they got young players, but they don't have any veterans. So the free agency is supposed to be that time. So you pull in, Kyle Lowry, which is a fantastic player in my opinion.
Yeah,
but
he'll put up big numbers there.
But that draft pick could potentially be a top 5 pick.
I have a question. And this I may look like an idiot here. Do they still have Jose Calderon?
They still do.
Okay, so there might be a little bit of competition there between Kyle Lowry and Jose
Calderon will probably be on his way out for whoever wants him. Maybe the Miami Heat need to get their point guard finally.
Yeah.
We keep talking about the Miami Heat.
I believe their point guard will end up being LeBron James, and their center will end up being LeBron James.
Yeah. So he'll play all 5 positions, and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh will continue to get swept under the rug because LeBron is the best player in the league.
In Segway City, the next team that we had left to talk about was
the Miami Heat. And who else besides the defending champs, and somehow they came out of winners this offseason, which usually happens with teams when they win a championship. You got players flocking to them. And the big signing that everybody knows of, we touched on it earlier with the Celtics, is Ray Allen. Ray Allen signed there for 2 years, $6 million, I believe. It's dirt cheap dollars. He was demanding $9 million per year from the Celtics.
Celtics were going to pay him twice that at least.
Yeah, and they offered it. They offered 2 years, 12, and he said no. So, but going back to why we like this, and I forget who had it. Some website out there had a fantastic chart on Ray Allen's shooting percentages and the Heat shooting percentages. From the corner 3, the Heat shot under 30. Ray Allen shot over 50 alone last year in the corner 3. So he's going to sit out there. Shane Battier is going to sit at the top of the key, and they're just going to wait for LeBron to kick to them.
Right, with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade penetrating like they do, slashing through defenses like they do, drawing double teams like they do, both of them on the floor along with Ray Allen, he is going to get more open looks than he knows what to do with. We said earlier that the Celtics are probably better off without Ray Allen. The Heat are much better with him still. We can at least say that. He fits perfectly with that team.
He doesn't have to play defense. They make up for it with their scheme and LeBron running all over the place. And the thing that the Heat do well is they cut off passing lanes. They don't stop you in the half court, but they will cut off passing lanes and force a lot of turnovers and force the fast break offense, which is what they'll do. Now, Ray Allen won't be running on that fast break offense, but he will be a trailing three-pointer. Right. So if there's nothing there, look for Ray, and I think that's going to be the motto for them.
He's going to make that shot a lot of the time.
Look for Ray. I expect his scoring to go up a little bit, to be honest with you. I see him.
It depends on his minutes.
It depends on the minutes, absolutely. But I think he gets the nod over Battier. He gets the nod over Miller. Well, Miller might not come back, but he gets the nod over everybody else on the
I think he'll be a starter. I think that they're going to put LeBron James at the power forward and trot out a 3-guy lineup of Wade at the small forward, Ray Allen at the shooting guard, and Chalmers at the point.
With the Chris Bosh at center.
Exactly.
It's going to be an interesting lineup.
LeBron James can play point guard on the offensive end with that lineup and probably play center on the defensive end if they need him to.
Yeah, that's what he does.
The guy's a freak.
That's what the best player in the league does. And that does it for us, for winners, losers, and confused. We got a little clapperoo going on.
Winners, losers, and the confused.
It's the way we like it. So,
hope you enjoyed it.
As we promised, we'll do some shameless plugs. We'll have Bozos of Basketball every Wednesday with J.J. Bucklin.
Right now, next week, I believe we're on Tuesday, so stay tuned for that.
Absolutely. And we'll probably be back here next Thursday where we're going to start breaking down the upcoming season. I'm thinking we pick a division every show, get as many guests on as we can, 2-hour shows, coming on. And thank you for telling us about that. Now that's just recorded audio. So, we got about 2 minutes left in this show. And anything else we want to add?
Not so much. I would just say continue to go to the site, theprobasketballtalk.com. Listen to all the podcasts. We have the Pick and Pop who are on every now and then. I believe they're on Saturdays.
They're on
Saturdays,
Sundays, maybe Mondays. They mix it up.
They mix it up. Stay tuned with them. Follow their Twitters. Mojays32 is one of them. Follow us at James_Bucklin. That's me. Pro Basketball Talk, which is Jacob. And, just keep following the site. Keep following our Twitters. Please tweet us with ideas. Call into the show. Call in is always 914-338-1288. us next week. We'll talk to you, and we'll probably have some guests with us, too.
Absolutely, and this podcast will be up shortly for everybody listening to at their homes. And, on NBA Unplugged.
Oh, it's time to do rocket!
Because I'm more Eli than Peyton. Because I'm the underdog, which means I'm underdog.